their job title was their identity. And I thought,
Yeah.
that's not who I am. Like my job is not who I am. Everyone would be like, oh, nice to meet you. I'm a such and such such.
Yeah.
Or, oh, nice to meet you. What do you do? Everything's what do you
Yeah.
do? What do you do? Well, what do I do? Like with what, my day? Or
Yeah.
oh, you mean my job? Of course, my job. Of course. And
Yeah.
it's like, and there's a time and place for that, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like necessarily a bad thing or anything. It's just a time and place, and I just didn't want to have it constantly 24/7. And I think I totally understand now why people go to the Hamptons from New York, because it's like you get your getaway and like you live
Yeah.
there, and then you live out there, but you work in the city. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's that balance.
This is the Asian Rebel Club podcast, a space for the ones who grew up chasing approval and are now learning how to be free. I am Crystal Ren, entrepreneur, creative, and recovering achievement addict. Each week, we dive into honest conversations with Asian rebels, rewriting what success, identity, and freedom really mean. If you're ready to live your story, not somebody else, welcome home.
Yeah, so you've been visible for such a long time. What has sharing your life publicly taught about yourself?
I think it's taught me actually that I am more private than I thought.
Okay.
Or I enjoy my privacy more than I thought. I don't know, necessarily taught me about myself, but it's taught me to, it's certainly, I think by nature I'm more introverted actually. So it has
Yeah.
allowed me to have a conversation starter, because people can already see something about me. So they kind of, going back to the very beginning of our conversation, they usually have something that they relate to me on. So it's really easy for me to start a conversation and talk to them
Yeah.
based on these things, because it's something that I already enjoy, or we already connect on. So taught me many things.
Yeah. So basically, being in public taught you that you were actually private.
Yes. It also helped me a lot. I think being in front of the camera all the time, talking, speaking in front of others, being a bit on display as well.
Yeah.
I can be very like self-conscious and critical of myself or appearance, whatever, but I also don't care as much, I guess. I kind of learned
Yeah.
to just like not really care.
Yeah.
In a sense, because we got to a certain point, like my wife Justine and I, we were both in this world, so we got to a certain point where there are cameras rolling and pictures being taken of you at events and things, where you are not in control anymore. You're not the one
No.
that's putting it out there, and now it's
Yeah.
now it's being taken by someone else. Now it's going into the newspaper or whatever. So you kind of learn to just let go of a lot of
You need to, right?
self-image stuff, where
Yeah.
you're like, well, is what it is.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, like, otherwise it's gonna just drive you crazy. I think that, like, I'm glad now that I have a stronger sense of self. So, like, I also get a little bit less affected by it. But, even like, I'm not an influencer, but even when I was posting some of the educational videos, I thought was more educational videos, and like, people would be like, your eyebrow is weird. And then, so now everybody's gonna look at my eyebrows. But like, just like how I draw my eyebrow, perhaps for that specific video. And I was just like, dude, like, why can't you just read? Why can't you just listen to the content?
I know in that type of content too. I'm like, you weren't even talking about like beauty or hair or something that's like specific to it. Cause like, there's obviously beauty influencers and they're like, I'm going to do this crazy eyebrow. And then the comments are like, that's weird. I don't know if I'm into that trend, but like you're giving an educational content. Like it's literally not about that. People online are funny. That's one thing I certainly never took any comments seriously from the beginning. I kind of just knew to not. So I've had all kinds of crazy comments, good and bad.
I mean, okay, so first of all, like, what is the craziest comments you've ever received, if you still remember?
Well, we've had lots of comments. Someone wrote, I think on one of my posts, I think they wrote like, oh my God, they like loved this outfit or loved my style or something, and it was like, oh, like, you were so incredible, I just want to like skin you and wear you. I think, and it was like the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
That is beyond weird.
But it was like super fan, a little bit like obsessive super fan, just borderline scary.
How did you even respond to that?
I think I just laughed. I think I just did it. I might not have responded, but I might have just done like laughing emojis. And then I've had other ones. There was one that I was really, really tanned, and someone said something like, "Oh, you're so dark. Like you look like you went through fell through a chimney or something." Something to do with being
Okay.
like dirty and like so dark you look like you had like soot on you or something.
I mean,
And I
you
thought it was
know,
so funny, and I loved being tan, so I was like, that's the best compliment ever.
but I mean, I gotta say, like when you had like blonde hair and you were like tan, you look more tan, right? Like when
That
you
too,
have,
for sure.
yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
actually was more tan because I was traveling a lot, and I
yeah,
was kind of going away to like these really crazy cool. Well, there was one year, and they all have to be warm destinations, and it was probably like once a month. So I had this like permatan
yeah.
through the year, and I definitely, yeah, I didn't look Chinese anymore. People were mistaking me for like, like more Southeast Asian all
Yeah,
the
yeah, or
time.
like
All the time they'd be like, "Oh, are you, Filipino or
Filipino,
Cambodian
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
Indonesian or something?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just tan."
So okay, let's clarify. That was not spray tan. That was actually real
No,
tan.
it was real. Yeah. Nowadays, I have like a light self tanner in my moisturizer because I don't get as
Yeah,
much sun. So I'm like, I don't want to look, too pale and like sickly.
yeah.
Have to
People
have
are
a,
like, what happened to you? Coming
I
from like
know.
didn't have a chimney to fall through anymore.
I know. Oh, that was like one of my favorites. I gotta look it up after. I'm pretty sure I screenshotted. I've screenshotted and saved like some of my craziest comments, my most fun and positive fan moments and stuff.
Yeah,
So just because yeah, they make me laugh, and
you should
so I
definitely
saved
make
it.
a post. You should definitely make a post of that. That would be I
I know,
think that would be
maybe
a
I
really good
should.
post. But anyway, so as an Asian man in fashion and lifestyle, how have you navigated being seen or misunderstood?
Definitely, in fashion and style, I think that's a really interesting question because I think, well, now things have changed. There's definitely more Asian. When I was younger, I would say like there were no male Asian celebrities really in my
Yeah,
periphery, other than
yeah.
like, you have like the Bruce Lees and Jackie Chans
But
of the
Jackie
world,
Chan,
and
yeah,
that was it. And like it was like this kind of like karate martial arts sort of thing, and that was like
yeah,
the vibe. So I felt like in a way I didn't really have any like model, like I never had like I like this like celebrity style, or I could see myself as so and so. I definitely was influenced by like, classic Hollywood, I guess like white Caucasian
yeah.
actors, James Dean, effortless, white t-shirt, blue jeans kind of style, that kind of thing. But
Hmm.
in terms of like actually like, yeah, I can see that person being a role model, I don't think I really had that, which I never really thought about again until like more recent years. And then in a way though, maybe it was good because it also gave me the opportunity to be like, I don't really have anyone to look at, so I could also be anything. So then I think with fashion, I experimented with all kinds of crazy looks. I've had some like really crazy outfits in the past. But it was a lot of fun. It was kind of just like I could shift into this or that or the other and kind of experiment with different styles and vibes. And it was really fun. So I don't know, maybe like not having necessarily this role model in style or, as a celebrity or whatever to look at kind of was fine, if not great.
Well, I
So
think
yeah.
this is so interesting because I wonder what that is because of lack of role models, a lot of people felt like they couldn't really be maybe who they wanted to be, and they could only follow certain path that is like designed for them.
Hmm.
But then it seems like for you, you kind of turned that into a opportunity of just being who you wanted to be because there is no perceived limitation. So I wonder where that came from. Do you think was coming from your upbringing? Like, did your parents tell you, like, you can be whoever you want to be? Where did that inner confidence come from? Because it seems like it's your own perception and interpretation of, something that we all see, but you just perceive it to be so much more positive
Hmm.
than perhaps, like a lot of other people.
Yeah, I guess I'm a relatively optimistic person, and I kind of choose to see positivity too. I think, if I dig down, well, I didn't really want to be, I didn't see myself being a doctor really. I kind of like dabbled in it because I thought, could I do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do it. I did pretty well in biology. Like, could I do it? And then I thought, nah, I didn't ever really,
Sorry, Uncle Bill.
yeah, I didn't really like understand what lawyers actually did, I think, like in elementary and high school. So that wasn't really of interest to me,
Yeah.
accounting, that kind of thing. So, and then I was always quite artistic and creative. So my parents definitely encouraged me to develop those skills and pushed me in that direction and said, like, you've like go with something that you're really passionate about, that
Yeah.
you can see your, be in an industry and work and do something that you can see yourself doing every day that you love. Well, real estate I always loved, and that was always something that I thought I would do. I thought about it at the time, but I think it just wasn't the right timing. And yeah, so anyway, I went down this like artistic path and had a really great time doing it. But it was like, yeah, I think my parents were just kind of like, you're really good at that, so you should pursue that. And I also have a business degree, so it was like the combination of the two. That was probably the Asian side of things, was like, get the business so you can turn it into
Gonna
something and
make
like
money. I mean,
make
it's like,
money and survive in the world, right?
yeah. But
So
I just felt it's fascinating that your parents, like your dad didn't push you into medicine just because, obviously I think his dad was a doctor, right? And he's a dentist. And, obviously like a lot of people in your family came from medical, like healthcare kind of backgrounds. And like I thought they will probably push you into that field as well because you're like the older son. But it seems like they didn't give you that pressure.
there probably was at some point, or like some suggestions, but I don't really
Yeah.
recall. Like, I never felt like I needed to go I definitely, and I never really felt that I needed to do that.
Mm,
It was kind of like, what about, would you be interested in like pursuing science? And then I think they was like very clear that I just wasn't that interested in it and I
mm.
didn't like it.
And you're okay.
So then it was just kind of like, all right, well, what else are you good at? And I was excelling, I think,
Mm,
in art and design. And it
right.
was kind of like obvious. It was like, okay, well, he's
Right.
excelling in this, so probably
Right.
that's a better route to go. Yeah.
Yeah, one question before we move on. So they never asked you that, oh, how about making money? How about like,
Oh
how are
gosh,
you gonna
all the
make?
time. All the
Oh, really?
time. When I
Okay.
first started, yeah, of course. When I started the online magazine, when I started thinking, it was like, well, how are you going to make money of this? And that actually is like the biggest question that everybody had, not just my parents. It was like the entire industry, like the odds were completely against anyone doing anything online because there was no precedent. But then, I did have these experiences at very big brand name editorial and media companies, and I guess, I was like, this is how it's going to go. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And it was very planned, and kind of, I did have a loose idea of like what I was going to do to monetize and like how it was going to happen. So yeah, my parents were like, oh, okay, so that kind of makes sense. And then I guess they just probably took a leap of faith with me on it. Yeah, but it wasn't like, oh, there's no clue how to do it. It was kind of, at the time, I knew that I needed to get readers. I needed to have the more eyeballs, the better, because then I could go to the brands and the publicists and say, as a publisher,
Mm,
this is our reach, this is our
mm.
influence. You should buy an ad. And I knew that advertising was the initial revenue stream.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not about like whether you're going to make money. It's about like what's the right sequencing of doing things. And if you follow the right sequencing, like the money will come, right?
Yeah,
And
a bit of that. Yeah.
what was your drive when you were in at the time like such an uncharted territory where like everybody's going digital, you're obviously, it seems like you're putting everything together first of all in your head and then testing it and then kind of move forward with the momentum. But what's your drive, right, in this
Hmm.
unknown and it's such a messy situation, people don't know whether it's going to work or not.
I think by nature I'm very driven and very ambitious. I think at the time, at that age, again, at the age I did want that outward success and recognition from others. I wanted to prove that I could do something, could be something. So that definitely drove me. Yeah, I'm like naturally ambitious and competitive too. So I always like to be, I love to be number one, love to be the first to do something.
Hey, that is
So,
that's very
you know,
Asian of you.
it's probably like that's like one of those in the DNA. So, I was in this world and well, number one, it was fun too. I was having so much fun and it was just like I think it was the excitement of the possibility of something that had never been done before too. And that was like such a drive because I do feel that I lost some of that drive as it was becoming late stage, decade into that industry, and as the influencer world started to develop and become oversaturated, it got really boring.
Yeah.
And it was just then you start to get repetitive, and I think at the beginning it was almost like that startup bug that people get, and where you're like, you probably can relate. It's like, you that initially you're starting the business. It's like the research and development that goes into it, and like the launch and like the building of the excitement, building something, and then maintaining it is great. But then when you get to the next, if you see, and then, the industry started going in a direction that I didn't really like. So had it gone in a different way, then maybe I would have continued and developed and then evolved again. I think in the media industry, you have to just constantly evolve and evolve and evolve and evolve, or not participate.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I made a transition out of it by consulting and then slowly branching into the real estate industry, which is actually very similar in a lot of ways to the influencer world. I think, like realtors and agents behave and operate their business in a very similar way to the way influencers do, and vice versa. So those kind of skills came into play.
So I wanted to touch base a bit on, obviously your current career in real estate. Initially, first of all, what drew you towards real estate and also, I guess, interiors, right? Because you're not just doing real estate. Was it a reinvention or is it a deeper extension of yourself? I think you allude to a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm also just curious to see a comprehensive answer.
For sure. I've always loved houses. When I was like 10-ish, I still have a binder probably at my parents' house, and I used to draw houses all the time. So I did think about possibly going into like architecture or interior design at one point, but I've always loved spaces and homes and the beauty of spaces and houses. So I kind of knew that one day I'd probably go, into that world and that realm. And then through the content side of things, through the influencer stuff, I started sharing, our own home, our own decorating, interior design, doing some staging stuff, working with an interior design friend of ours doing these installs. And then that industry kind of just sucked me in and brought me over. So it was a really like natural transition because I've always loved it. And then all of a sudden it kind of started becoming part of my business, and then then becoming my means of making a living.
Yeah, I really feel like it's almost like I'm talking to a cast of Selling Sunset. Have you ever thought maybe join that agency? I don't know. I think I heard they're opening a Vancouver office. I mean,
yeah, they're our competitor. I mean, I'm a partner of Engel and Volker, so technically I'm a brokerage owner already. So I would never leave my brand, but I would definitely do a different show for sure. If they invited me on, there's a few different brokerages that do shows, so we'll see. But I think too the drama of those, specifically like Selling Sunset, is just so unrealistic, and there's so many people on there that aren't even licensed agents.
Really?
It's just so much about that personal catty drama of The Office, where I would probably be more interested in doing it like an HGTV pseudo boring show, but it would be fun to do. Or like, those house hunters,
like flipping houses or something. Can't remember. There's a few of them.
Yeah, or like Love It or Listed is like super fun, where you kind of show them around. They either like list their house and buy a new one, or they renovate and stay. And it's like, it's a little bit more wholesome, slightly boring, less
Slightly
drama,
boring.
but interesting. It's interesting and it's fun. It's easy to watch, that sort of thing. I'd love to do, and I think because it's more authentic to the business and it's more authentic to me and how I run my business. Whereas like the Selling Sunset, with the way that they portray the agents and the way that they portray the business is really I mean, to me, it's a bit gross because it here anyway, where I live and work, it is a licensed profession, so it should be seen. We technically behave like the good agents all behave the same way that, like, your lawyer, your accountant,
Of
people who are
course.
licensed professionals, your doctor
Yeah.
should be, right?
Yeah.
We are responsible for huge assets in people's lives, so you can't make mistakes, and it's not about being dramatic and yelling on the phone and all that stuff and people's like exes and dating and this and that. It's like not about that at all, but that doesn't make for good TV. So
No.
I mean, it's kind of the way, like, like they do like Grey's Anatomy is like totally not how a hospital
Yeah,
is.
exactly. But it sells.
But that's what sells, exactly. That's what
Yeah.
people want to watch. Nobody wants to see the actual thing happen.
I think people will want to see it if it, like, for example, it teaches them how to make money. Or like there's
Yes.
some kind of tangible result they can get as a result of that.
Hmm.
Then they probably won't mind the investment, and they will also be like, "Oh, this is entertaining, right?" Then entertainment becomes like the icing on the top.
Yeah. $1 million Listing is actually pretty good. Like the LA one, $1 million Listing is it's fun, and the people are like characters and they're a little bit dramatic, but the way they portrayed them doing the business side of things is a little bit more professional, I would say. So that's a good one. I like that show. But I don't watch any of them anymore because I find that it just like makes me start to feel stressed because I've been in like all those situations that they're in, or like when they're a deal's collapsing and they're trying to hold it together. I'm like, I do not need to see this on
It's like
television.
it's a reminder of your PTSD.
Yeah, I'm like, this is happening. That happened to me last week. I don't need to see it again on TV. So
But I am looking forward to your own real estate TV show for sure.
yeah,
Whenever it
we'll
comes
see.
out,
I
let me
know.
know.
I definitely I wouldn't say no to the opportunity.
Yeah, okay. Netflix take notes. And so do you feel like you're in the second act right now? And if so, what's changed in how you define success or fulfillment?
You know what? I think I probably am, if not like a third act. But yeah, definitely second act. I think I define my success now more as being able to be like have stability in my life and having time, stability, quality relationships. I'm much more focused on that. Um, I think because I now have some more financial stability in my life. Whereas before, I think first act, you're young, you're like, I have nothing. I need to, I need to like establish myself. I need to make money. I need to have a home. I need to have a car. I need to have this and that. And I need to also like show people that I did something. I think there was definitely some pressure coming from like the school that I went to, and well, both university and then and the high school before. So I just, yeah, kind of had this like background feeling like I have to like prove that I did something after all of this. It was not like it wasn't, I wouldn't call it like, some people say they have like overwhelming pressure, and like I wouldn't say it was anything close to that, but just a little bit there pushing in the background. But now kind of like I like to do my own stuff. I like to do my garden,
Yeah. I
and
gotta
just
say,
have like,
yeah, it's probably just like the New York energy, like the hustle energy too, right? Because like it's really hard to not push when you are in the city or like
yes.
you live there for a while.
Yeah, when you're in it, and especially like, yeah, when you're in the environment, everyone around you, like New York, one of the reasons that I actually decided to not try to stay in the downtown in the city, was that like and in Toronto too, I just felt like everybody was in this like rat race, and like
Mm-hmm.
their job title was their identity, and I thought that's not who I am. Like my job is not who I am. Everyone would be like, "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm a such and such such," or "Oh, nice to meet you. What do you do?" Everything's what do you
Yeah.
do? What do you do? Well, what do I do? Like with what, my day? Or oh, you mean my job? Of course, my job, of course. And it's like, and there's a time and place for that, I think. I don't think it's like necessarily a bad thing or anything. It's just a time and place, and I just didn't want to have it constantly 24/7. And I think I totally understand now why people go to the Hamptons from New York. Because it's like, you get your getaway and like you live there, and then you live out there, but you work in the city. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's that balance. But not everyone can do that either, unless you have the financial means to do it. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, so catch
That's a whole
22.
whole other story. Yeah, I know. Then you have
Yeah.
to work. Then you have to work extra hard in the city so you can afford to have your other place to then retreat to. So it's like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean, or you can just move to, I don't know, like a Bangkok, right? That you don't need to do any
Yeah.
of that. It's amazing. Honestly, like the
Or you
food.
retire, yeah, and you're getting $5
Yeah,
massages in Thailand.
yeah. Why bother do all of
Tempting,
that?
tempting, very tempting. Maybe,
Okay.
maybe we'll all be there in a couple of years. We'll see you there.
Yeah, come over to Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's part of your story you think people misunderstand, or that you've never really had space to share?
Hmm. I definitely think that a lot of people think they probably assume that I'm very extroverted. And I think a lot of times, like, especially in the from the influencer days, the kind of more followers I had, a lot of people felt that maybe they couldn't relate to me, or they were like intimidated by me. And I think that's like one of the weirdest misconceptions, because I don't think I'm very intimidated at all. I think I'm relatively approachable, but I felt like I was very approachable. But then a lot of people, I mean, even to this day, I think they think, oh, like, I'm just very, I guess, yeah, I'm like careful about what I present out there. I do definitely only present like my Instagram is like 100% just like the highlights reel. Like I don't really share like bad things, I guess, quote unquote bad things, or like challenges, hardships, not for really any reason. Not that if I'm talking to someone, I'll tell them, what's happened to me and whatever. It's just kind of like, I don't define myself by that. So I don't really want that as part of my personal brand, because I find that what you put out there is what people see and how they interpret, because that's how I see and I interpret, is what I can gather from someone's online profile. So then, yeah, I guess like the flip side of that is that like people don't necessarily know that I've had struggles or challenges or whatever. And so they think that I live this like perfect life, which I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to hide that, but I'm just not trying to like make that who I am. Yeah, I guess like when I get the opportunity to talk to people and connect with people, then you can dive more into those like deeper connections of like life and things you go through and things you think. So yeah, that's just one thing though from like the online world, I would say that is a misconception, I guess, or like
Yeah, for sure.
misunderstanding, and like, yeah, they maybe have a different idea of who I am because they can only go by what I've put out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you don't have those struggles, just that you chose to not showcase it. But you wanted to show people positivity, but then it's like, it's like catch 22 where people are like, okay, then that's who you are, but that's not necessarily who you are. You also, have same struggles as the rest of people too.
Yeah, exactly. Other layers and stuff. I think that's probably the biggest misunderstanding, I guess, if you want to say that. Yeah. Or like what people might not realize. But yeah, and it's not from a place of trying to hide it. It's just, I just don't want it part of my resume, I guess. My online brand, and like, yeah, then it just is there forever all the time. And you're just like, okay, well, it's a moment that doesn't define me, but it's a moment that I've learned from, or persevered through and learned something from. But it doesn't have to become part of your identity.
Yeah. I mean, it is really hard to balance it, right? Because like sometimes I say something and it becomes permanent, and you're like had a vulnerability handover where in the end you're like, oh shit, like that's what I said now. It's an interesting feeling to like, it does feel sometimes good to tell people like everything, but in the meantime when it's out there you're like, oh shit, like you start to judge yourself, you start to feel insecure about it, right? Just because it's such a big piece of you. I do feel like sometimes it's healing to talk about things that like, maybe I'm still trying to process, but I say it out loud there, and having other people relate to it is so healing, right? Because then you feel like you're not alone.
Yeah. That's the beauty of social media as well. You can use it in that way. And I think there's something great about that as well.
Yeah. So, okay, we're going to have a very quick closing round of Real Talk edition.
All right.
So
love it.
how that goes is that I'm going to ask you a few questions, and just give me one sentence to ask each question. And there's 5 in total.
Okay.
So the first one is a cultural belief that you've outgrown.
Oh my gosh, that's a tough question. Cultural belief? I don't even know.
Come on, there's definitely some.
Like what would an example be? Like what if other people said it?
Okay, so
And like
maybe I'll
cultural
start.
belief.
Maybe
I don't
I'll
know.
start. Okay.
Maybe I don't have enough I don't have strong enough Asian cultural beliefs. I'm too westernized. I don't know. Cultural belief.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
I don't know.
Let me start this. Let me start this, right? Because like I
Oh,
did have one that I
this is
need
a
to.
good blooper.
I mean, I did have one that I need to outgrow last year, which was that I realized all of a sudden that because grew up in communist China, like you really learn to equate your productivity with your self worth. And I was thinking like constantly for decades where like I gotta work hard, otherwise like I had no use in the society, and like I was nobody if I didn't work hard, and if I couldn't add value to other like the society and other people, like I will just be discarded by the society, right? Which is just such a traumatizing belief. So that's mine. Now yours.
Yeah, that's a good one. I really don't even know. I feel like, well, I guess maybe my answer to the question is that I never really felt restricted by cultural beliefs.
Mm.
I know for one, I historically, this is way longer than a sentence, but I have always like been kind of, I guess, rebellious to cultural beliefs because I didn't feel that my identity was tied to being like my identity wasn't just that I was Asian. So
Right.
like the concept of like saving face, for example, I remember like having this huge, not an argument, but like a big discussion with my parents once in the car. I remember because I was saying like I just think that's so stupid. Like I don't really prescribe to the concept of saving face and kind of like, is what it is. You are who you are. Like you don't need to
Yeah.
like pretend to do something so that other people can see you or think of you in a certain way. And I think that's definitely a very prevalent Asian in all Asian cultures. It's a prevalent thing. So that always sticks out to me, but it kind of was in the past.
Right. But so basically you outgrew everything in a very young age.
I think so. I guess that was my rebellious streak was those kind of things was to get past like cultural limitations. But I think my parents were pretty progressive too. Like they didn't have that many
They were, definitely, yeah.
that many. And like my aunts and uncles, like they were just not so tied to their identity. I think they have like their Canadian identity that is part of their also Asian identity, and like it's that unique
It's a unique blend for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the second one is
Okay,
small joy.
that was a way longer than a sentence question.
It's okay. We're gonna make it up for the last time in the next few questions.
Okay. Oh God.
A small joy that makes you feel most like you.
Just being out in the garden.
Okay. Amazing. The next one is something you used to chase but don't anymore.
I would say fame, because of the influencer world. Like I think going for having that fame meant that you had more followers, which means you could then have a bigger business and have more brand opportunities and make more money. So fame and fortune, I guess. Both.
Okay. So, but as a result, what are you chasing now, or are you chasing anything?
I think I'm actually at a point in life where I'm not really chasing anything, which is nice. I think I'm just enjoying the present, but I love to plan for the future and I love to dream of the future and like of possibilities. So I still do that, but I'm not really like chasing it, but more so just patiently walking towards it. Yeah, manifesting it and at a walking pace, and I'm patient and I know that things will just come, and what is meant to be will happen, and to just find satisfaction in like small, in other things, I guess. Yeah,
that definitely shows your age. Like I felt like I'm talking to a old man.
I know. I do feel I just turned 37, but I feel like I turned 77 inside. So
okay, a place, person, or ritual that makes you feel safe.
I would say like getting together for family meals with like my immediate family, with extended family, with my wife Justine's family. Like our families are very close too. So like family things when everyone's together, and people, or even like to some of my very close friends, like spending quality time together makes me just feel understood, safe.
Yeah. Gotcha. The last question is, when do you feel most free?
When do I feel most free? I would certainly say I feel most free when I feel like I have financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So,
not in the gardens?
I do feel pretty good in the garden too. But I also feel great in the garden when I can afford to buy lots of plants to then add to my garden, or do like my little garden projects where I'm like rearranging things, and you know, you need supplies and tools and all that for.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think I have to say, like, in the world we live in, like, I think like money's not everything, but it is important in your ability to feel abundant, or like,
For
you know,
sure.
to go out and like have experiences.
Yeah.
So that's always nice to have. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So
if I have a lot of projects, or, you know, in real estate, I have a lot of closings coming up all at the same time, it's a great feeling, because all of a sudden my bank account is replenished, and I feel
Yeah.
like, you know, there's cash flow. I think it's not necessarily about like having money, but having just money come through and being able to like flow into things, so that it's the currency of living and experiences. Like, it's not necessarily meant to just amass and like, you know, hoard. You don't want to just spend everything that comes in, but like, you want to be living your life and using it as a tool for you to live your life and have experiences and share moments with your friends and family and all of that.
Yeah, it's it could be a very nourishing force. And so you don't need to think about it and just live your life. Yeah.
Easier said than done. That's the goal.
More closing, and
that's what I'm chasing. Peace. Mental peace.
Yeah. So,
no worries, no anxiety.
Okay, so I usually ask this question to all my guests. Finishing the sentence, I am proud of myself because.
I'm proud of myself because I was able to, in my first chapter of my career, create something from absolutely nothing that didn't exist. And additionally, proud of myself for being able to successfully transition into the second chapter of my career.
So if you were to say like one thing, because that's a story, right? So what's about that you're proud of?
What am I proud of? Proud of following my intuition.
Okay. So following intuition to make things happen, right? So
to believe in myself.
Yeah.
I'm proud of myself for believing in myself.
If this conversation sparked something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're building a more true life, not just more impressive, we would love to hear your story. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Asian Rebel Club, and join our newsletter for more ways to connect. Link in the description. Until next time.